There is this specific kind of quiet that only certain people know. Not lonely exactly, just familiar, like background noise you stopped noticing years ago. It is the quiet of always being the second call, the backup plan, the friend people remember when their first choice cancels. And if that hits something in you right now, if your chest just tightened a little, then this one's for you. Because growing up as nobody's first choice doesn't just sting in the moment, it rewires you. It shapes how you love, how you ask for things, how you walk into a room, and most importantly, how you decide what you deserve. You are the one who overprepares for everything, because you learned early that effort was the only thing that might make people stay. You are the friend who always checks in on everyone else, but quietly panics when someone asks how you are actually doing. You are the person who rehearses asking for help and then talks yourself out of it every single time. And here is what nobody tells you. That pattern, that invisible ache of being perpetually second, it has a name and a psychology that goes deeper than anyone thinks. Picture this. You are 7, maybe 8 years old. It is a birthday party, and teams are being picked for a game in the backyard. You are standing there, arms at your sides, watching name after name get called, and yours just doesn't come. Not last necessarily, but late enough that you feel it in your stomach, late enough that you learn something about yourself before you even have the words for it. And that feeling doesn't just live in childhood. Researchers in developmental psychology call it perceived mattering. It is the belief that you matter to other people, that your presence is noticed and your absence would be felt. And when that belief never fully forms in childhood, it leaves a signature on everything. So let's talk about what that signature actually looks like, because it is probably running your life more than you realize. The first thing it does is teach you to monitor. Constantly, you become an expert at reading rooms, scanning faces, measuring how much space you are allowed to take up. Psychologists call this hypervigilance to social cues. But in plain English, it means you learn to watch before you speak, to calculate before you connect. And here is the paradox. That constant scanning actually makes you incredibly perceptive. You notice things other people miss entirely. The micro-expressions, the shift in someone's tone, the way a friend's laugh sounds slightly different when they're performing versus when they're actually happy. You became emotionally fluent because you had to be, not as a gift, as a survival strategy. But here is what is fascinating. That same skill that makes you so good at reading people turns against you in one very specific way. You start pre-rejecting yourself. Before anyone can choose you or not choose you, you've already decided you are not going to be picked. Psychologists call it rejection sensitivity. It is this hair-trigger alarm system where your brain interprets even neutral signals as evidence that you are about to be left out. Someone takes a little too long to text back, and your body floods with the same panic you felt on that playground. Not because anything is wrong, because your nervous system never stopped expecting to be overlooked. And there is this weird thing that happens next. The part nobody talks about. You start overfunctioning. You become the person who always brings the thing nobody asked for, who shows up early, who remembers everyone's allergies and birthdays and coffee orders. Not because you are naturally organized, because somewhere deep down you believe that if you stop being useful, you'll stop being wanted. Researchers call it earning attachment. It is when a child learns that love isn't something you get for existing. It is something you earn through performance, through being helpful, through disappearing your own needs. And that pattern follows you into every relationship you'll ever have. But let's go even deeper, because there is a cost to all of this that people rarely name out loud. When you've spent your whole life proving you are worth choosing, you never actually learn what you want. Your desires get buried under everyone else's preferences because wanting something and not getting it feels worse than never wanting at all. Psychologists call this self-silencing. It is the chronic suppression of your own needs, opinions, and desires in order to maintain relationships. And it sounds small until you realize it means you've spent years building a life shaped by what other people wanted from you instead of what you actually needed for yourself. And here is the part that will probably hit the hardest. So stay with me. The cruelest thing about never being first choice is that eventually you start to agree with it. It stops feeling like something that happened to you and starts feeling like something that is true about you. Psychologists call this internalized unworthiness, but you and I both know there is a simpler word for it. It is shame, not guilt. Guilt says you did something bad. Shame says you are something bad, and it is almost invisible because it doesn't scream. It just whispers. It whispers things like, don't ask for too much. Don't take up space. Be grateful anyone's here at all. And you believe it because the evidence seemed so consistent for so long. But here is what I need you to hear. And I mean really hear. The fact that people didn't choose you first was never a measurement of your value. It was a measurement of their attention, their capacity, their own limitations. A child's brain can't make that distinction. A child's brain says, if they don't pick me, it is because I am not worth picking. But an adult brain can look back and finally separate what happened from what it meant. And that is where the real work starts. Not in proving yourself to anyone, not in earning your place at the table, but in slowly, carefully, learning to take up space without apologizing for it, in asking for what you need without a 5-paragraph justification attached, in accepting that you were never too much or too little. You were just in rooms that didn't have space for you yet, and the people who do choose you really choose you first, always without you having to perform a single thing. Those people exist. They're not a fantasy. They're just harder to trust because your nervous system keeps waiting for the catch. But here is what I want to leave you with. The part of you that adapted, that learned to scan rooms and overfunction and pre-reject yourself, that part kept you safe, and you should thank it. But you don't have to let it drive anymore. You can move it to the passenger seat, acknowledge what it did for you, and still choose to walk into rooms like you belong there. Because you do. You always did. There is a concept in psychology called corrective emotional experience. It means that healing doesn't always come from understanding what went wrong. Sometimes it comes from finally having something go right, from someone choosing you without you having to audition, from being wanted without conditions. And you might flinch when it happens. You might look for the exit, or wait for the other shoe to drop. That is normal. That is your old operating system doing its job. But the new operating system, the one you are building right now just by recognizing these patterns, that one says something different. It says, maybe I don't have to earn this. Maybe I can just let it in. And that shift, that tiny little shift from performing to just being present, that is not small. That is everything. That is the entire revolution happening inside a single person's chest when they finally stop auditioning for their own life. So if you grew up as the backup plan, the second call, the one who had to earn every ounce of belonging, I want you to know something. You were never the leftover. You were just surrounded by people who didn't know what they were looking at. And the world is full of people who will. You just have to stop hiding so they can find you. That is the psychology of never being anyone's first choice. And if it resonated with you, if something in here felt like your own story being read back to you, subscribe, because these deep dives take time, and your support genuinely makes them possible. Hit that join button if you want to become a member of this community. And if someone in your life needs to hear this, send it to them. Sometimes being chosen by someone is as simple as a link and a message that says, "This made me think of you," because you were always worth choosing. You just needed someone to say it out loud.